All right, everyone. Not much point in talking about the game at the weekend. I think we were outplayed. I think games these days become pretty much irrelevant. One, because the season's pretty much over, and two, because games are just a constant reminder of the same flaws and failings over and over again, which won't change until there's massive changes off the pitch. So games are just a reminder of those things. I think it's going to be a long second half of the season for United fans. Sancho&Rashford was there. Last week it was revealed that Jean-Claude Blanc isn't going to be the CEO of United, which for me is a massive red flag. Not because of the reasons given. I think the reasons given are pretty sound reasons. That he was. It's not a football position. It's a whole club position, and he's going to be one of the two INEOS members on the board, and they have the power. That board will have the power to hire and fire CEOs. So in some respects, he supersedes the role. I understand that. The issue I've got is that the club have put out there in the last 2 or 3 months that he will be the CEO, and I'm going to look a little bit into their motives behind that and why I think that's a red flag. So in October, it was all but confirmed that Sancho&Rashford would take a 25% stake in United rather than we get a full sale with Qatar, which was the two options that were there at that time. The vast majority of United fans were not happy with that. I said at the time, expect spin, and sure enough, there's stories out there, one of which, from very reputable and credible journalists and media outlets, was that Jean-Claude Blanc was going to be the incoming CEO of United. The Glazers are master tacticians at knowing how to gaslight, manipulate and lie. And I think they've put names out there like Jean-Claude Blanc, Dan Ashworth, Paul Mitchell, the fact that the INEOS are going to get Sporting control. They've put all that out there as read, as a given, so that it quells and puts water on any fire that might be there. And it's clever. You know, as someone myself that really, really, really wanted a full sale and therefore Qatar, you start mentioning names like Jean-Claude Blanc, Dan Ashworth and Paul Mitchell, and one thing you could say about that is, they're the type of names I think that probably Qatar would be looking at. We're not going to have as much money as we would have had with Qatar, but in terms of football expertise, they're pretty much as good as it gets, I think. So it dampens down the anger, it quietens things down. And as I said at the time, when those names were being mentioned at first, just be careful, because at the moment those appointments haven't been made. It potentially could be spin. It's like in the summer when people were doing rate this transfer window and including 3 players that we hadn't signed yet. None of those appointments have been confirmed, and sure enough, now it's been revealed Jean-Claude Blanc is not going to be the CEO. He is going to be part of the club, but he's not going to be CEO. I think it's a massive red flag, because please don't get drawn into revisionism. Very, very reputable media outlets and journalists have said they've written things like incoming CEO Jean-Claude Blanc. The club has put that to them without a shadow of a doubt. They've not made it up. The club has put that to them. So the club's lied for the past 2.5 months that Jean-Claude Blanc's going to be the CEO when they knew full well he wasn't going to be. There's not been a change of heart. It was never going to be the case. So I wouldn't be remotely surprised then if we next hear the next rumour was, let's say, Paul Mitchell. Oh no, he was never going to be him. He was never going to relocate to Manchester, or whatever. I don't know. Maybe he's already relocated to Manchester. The reasons are unimportant, but that he then won't be the director of football. It'll be Dougie Freedman. And United fans are experts at polishing a turd, so there's a lot of them out there that probably think that was brilliant. The Dan Ashworth thing, I just think that's another name that's been thrown in there. You're not going to get Dan Ashworth and Paul Mitchell. That was never going to happen anyway. So then people will be like, oh, he's got that contract with Newcastle. He'd have to have a year's gardening leave. That's not going to happen. The Sporting control thing, I'm pretty sure will be absolutely full of loopholes. And in the end, Joel Glazer gets the final say. If I was a betting man, I'd put money on it. The rumour by rumour that's made this seem positive, I think in the next few weeks and months will slowly come to the realisation that none of those things are happening. Because as I've said to you before, if the Glazers are anywhere near something, lower your expectations, lower them a bit more, go to your worst case scenario, lower them a bit more off the scale pretty much. And that's somewhere in the ballpark of where it's going to land. You cannot trust these bastards. And I've got 18 years of evidence to suggest that that's true. And yet we fall for trusting them pretty much, once or twice a year when something big comes along. I think we were massively taken down the garden path with the Qatar thing. The Qatar thing was never going to happen. And I think they knew that all the way along. They the only thing they're good at is gaslighting, manipulating, and lying. If they put as much energy into actually running the club properly, we might be quite successful. So any rumour or positive story that's put out there about Sir Jim Ratcliffe at the moment, I'm taking with a massive pinch of salt. And I'll judge as I find when things actually start to happen, rather than anything that the press puts out there. They've got some massive decisions to make. They've got to be ruthless. I was thinking about this. You've got Casemiro and Varane are two people that are being mentioned. Perhaps they might leave the club because of age and injury record and discipline concerns and whatever, and that they're on massive wages. Right. If we're looking at wages as a factor, it has to be a factor rather than the overall reason why you get rid of someone, because Casemiro and Varane are on, between them, probably about 600 grand a week. But they're both Champions League winners multiple times over. They've both got really good mentalities and characters. They're winners. They've had huge experience of winning, and they're probably really strong influences and good role models around the dressing room. So whilst they're on a lot of money, they bring a lot to the party in that respect. Rashford and Sancho, between them, are on £700,000 a week. They do next to nothing on the pitch. They have no positive influence on the pitch pretty much whatsoever. And they're both, I think, potentially quite toxic influences around the dressing room. The thing that Rashford did when he scored the goal the other day says everything you need to know about him. What do we say about Liverpool as a club? Is it offended by everything, responsible for nothing? Well, Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho fit that profile. Maybe they should go and play for Liverpool, because that's them. What are you so offended by, Marcus? Are we wrong to say you've not played well this season? Is that why you're doing that? Because you've scored 4 goals this season, and that was your 4th goal of the season. Just look at a tape of Sunday against Tottenham and tell me that that's a player. And I'm sorry. I'd question your judgment on football massively. But neither of those two offer anything. And you're paying him 700 grand a week between them. So if it's not as simple as this, obviously, but if it came down to a duet to get rid of, let's say, as it's Casemiro and Varane, or it's Rashford and Sancho, there's absolutely not even a debate about it that it would be Rashford and Sancho. Will they have the balls to do that? I don't know. I'm very, very sceptical. I saw Mark Goldbridge last night talking about Bruno and Rashford, and he said that they're 2 of his favourite players. They're the 2 best attacking players in the team. First of all, I'll disagree with that. Rashford isn't one of the best attacking players in the team, but Bruno is, without a doubt. And he was talking about Bruno and saying that one of the issues with Bruno is that because he hasn't got anything that he trusts behind him, he's ill-disciplined, and he comes into other people's spaces and he doesn't hold his position very well. I agree with that. But he was comparing the two. You can't compare the two for me, because Bruno, by what Goldbridge was saying, is pretty much being accused of doing too much. He's running around like a headless chicken. He's ill-disciplined, but he's running around. He's trying his best. As you look at his body language and how frustrated and aggravated he gets, he cares. And you look at his output and his productivity over the last few years. How many goals has he scored in 4 years? How many goal involvements has he had in 4 years? I put my neck on the line and say I bet it's more than Rashford's had and that's for midfield, more than Rashford's had as a striker in however many, is it 9 years now since he broke through? And Rashford doesn't run. Doesn't look. I've got more passion and animation in my little fingernail than he's got in his whole being. There's just an absolute arrogance and apathy about him. He doesn't care. So Those two are not comparable. Bruno has his faults, but he works and he tries and he wants the best and he's aggravated and he's passionate and he's emotional. Give me that any day of the week rather than someone who just doesn't run and doesn't care and isn't very good and doesn't score goals and doesn't assist. So the rumblings will go on now for the rest of the season because the football's shit. So no one's really bothered about it. So we're looking at bigger picture stuff for the rest of the season. And I think there's dangerous elements to this fan base where you start, hoping you just don't listen too hard to certain bits of it, because Bruno won't be the one I'd be getting rid of. And neither will Casemiro and Varane. I think Sancho's an open goal. If they don't get rid of him, you may as well give up. But Rashford's the one for me. I think, I said it in another video, if they get rid of him, I'll take it seriously. I think they mean business. They mean what they're saying. Because you can't come in with this criteria and, what's the word, like their ideal, if you like, their vision and of what that is, and then think that Marcus Rashford fits that. It just means it's bullshit. So that's a biggie. It's good that Sir Jim was at the game. It's good that he spoke to the Man United Supporters Trust. Man United Supporters Trust don't represent me in any way, shape or form as a United fan. They don't represent United fans. They've done nothing significant to remove the Glazers, which should have been their primary function for the last 19 years. They've not done it. They've not got close to it. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't trust them. Ironic, as they're called, the United Supporters Trust. But they nonetheless are our fan representation, and Sir Jim spoke to them. Safe at the moment, isn't it? Because he can't say too much. So it's all very superficial and on a level, and the fact he's talking to them in the first place means he's a million miles ahead of the Glazers. But we'll see. We'll see what the proof, as they say, is in the pudding, and I'll reserve judgment. But if they make some big decisions, if they make decisions that align with what they claim to be their vision is, then good, that's great. And if we get people in like Paul Mitchell and Dan Ashworth, then cool. But I worry, to go back to the main topic of the video, I worry that the more that comes out, the more we're going to have to compromise as United fans. I think this Jean-Claude Blanc thing is just the start. Glazers out.